早晨咁多位。
Good morning, members. Mr. Jeffrey Lam cannot attend today's meeting because he's otherwise engaged, so I will be chairing today's meeting. Item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes of meeting for the meeting held on the 24th of April. The minutes have been sent to members. So far, the Secretary hasn't received any proposed amendment, and I invite members to confirm the minutes now. No objection? Okay, so minutes confirmed. Item 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. After the last meeting, 9 information papers have been issued by the Secretariat, and please refer to the agenda for the details. Items for discussion at the next meeting. The next meeting will be held on the 24th of July, Monday, at 10:45. 2 proposed items from the government. The legislative amendments to the air quality and also to reprovision the current GPO at Wang Chin Street. That is item 2 on the list of outstanding issues. Members, is that agreeable? Mr. James Toh? I've just written a letter to Mr. Jeffrey Lam, chairman of the panel, in respect of the not yet published Lama accident report. Well, I would like to have a discussion of the report in a closed-door sessions, since many members have already read it, and many of the issues uncovered in the report have been addressed. So you want to do this in October? As soon as possible, yes. I would talk to the Secretariat to work out a suitable timetable. On the 1st of June 2017, Mr. Stephen Ho wrote to the chairman, Mr. Jeffrey Lam, to have an open public hearing on the establishment of a new fairway. Do members agree to this idea? If so, then perhaps in the July regular meeting, that is the one to be held on the 24th of July, we'll have that hearing to allow sufficient time for the public hearing. Let's consider starting our meeting at 9 a.m. before we proceed to the regular meeting proper. Comments? The time again, please. The 24th of July. Mrs. Yip. The 24th of July, the Secretariat proposes that we deal with the hearing part first at 9 a.m. and at 10:45. That is the same time as today that we'll have our regular meeting. Mr. Charles Moore, I think please make sure that we have a quorum, because some members would not be able to attend that regular meeting. I won't be back. I wouldn't have returned to Hong Kong. Sorry for that. So, how many members can attend that meeting? Please give an indication. I have to make sure that we have a quorum before we consider whether the proposal should go forward. Chairman, I'm in favor of allowing the relevant deputations to come to tell us what they think. But if we do not have a quorum in July, we can change the schedule to accommodate that hearing on another day. I support the proposal to have a hearing. Yes, so in principle, the members are agreeable to the holding of a public hearing, but if we cannot do this in July, we can find another time slot. How long would that be? for that public hearing. The Secretariat proposes to have the hearing at 9, and then we would have our regular meeting at 10:45. Is there only one issue for the public hearing? Yes, then I support it. Because there's a duty visit to Israel, and I believe some members here will also be on that visit. So the Secretariat would consult members. We'll ensure that, first of all, we have a quorum before we invite deputations. So in principle, this is agreed, and the Secretariat would handle the technical issues. All right, item number 4. Amendments to subsidiary legislation under the Merchant Shipping Prevention and Control of Pollution Ordinance, Cap 413, and the Merchant Shipping Limitation of Ship Owners Liability Ordinance, Cap 434, to implement the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships and the Convention on Limitation of Liability of Maritime Claims. Let's invite the administration to join us.
Good
morning. I'll now invite Ms. Yan from the THB to brief us. I'll defer to my colleague from the Marine Department. Chairman, good morning, Chairman, members. We want to introduce the latest proposed amendments to the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, or MARPOL, and the Convention on the Limitation of Liabilities for Maritime Claims. First, let's talk about the two conventions. First, MARPOL, in order to protect the marine environment and minimize pollution from ship operation, the International Maritime Organization adopted MARPOL in 1973 to provide certain requirements for Annex 2, which regulates ships carrying noxious liquid substances, NLS, including the design and construction, ship certification, and control of operational discharges. Annex 2 of MARPOL applies to all Hong Kong vessels, and we do this through the Merchant Shipping Prevention and Control of Pollution Ordinance, Cap 413, and its subsidiary legislation in Hong Kong, which apply to all Hong Kong ships. Because we have now acquired some new knowledge about the impact of NLS chemicals on marine environment, and therefore in 2007 there have been revised guidelines and procedures and requirements, and that is in 2004. That we would like to incorporate all these changes into local legislation, which came in force in 2014. We would like to have a new categorization of NLS, and that is category X, Y, and Z, and other substances. Category X products are the most hazardous to the marine environment and health. Other substances are less harmful, or rather harmless, to the marine environment and human health. Apart from that, because of the improvement to the unloading system of ships, we can impose stricter control on the amount of residue that can be discharged into the sea after cargo unloading for categories X, Y, and Z in on or after ships constructed on or after the 1st of January 2007. The maximum permitted residue in the tank and its piping system after cargo unloading will be subject to a limit of 75 liters for all products instead of 100 to 900 liters. And also for ships constructed on or after the 1st of January 2007, if they are to carry the category X, Y, and Z products, they must have an underwater discharge outlet. Let me now turn to the Convention on Limitation of Liability for Maritime Claims. There's a change to the financial liability limit. In 1976, the International Maritime Organizations adopted these conventions, putting a financial cap on the liability for the personal loss of life and personal injury, as well as property damage. And the unit of measurement of liability is a special drawing right, which is an interest-bearing international reserve asset created by the IMF. And this is implemented in Hong Kong through Schedule 2 to the Merchant Shipping Limitation of Ship Owners Liability Ordinance, Cap 434, which applies to all Hong Kong ships. And since 1996, we have been experiencing inflation, and IMF announced in 2012 to increase the liability by 51%. The new limits came into force in 2015, and we propose to update Schedule 2 to Cap 343 to incorporate the new limits into local legislation. Please refer to the table in the paper, which sets out the limits according to the tonnage of the ships concerned.
In terms of the anti-pollution measure and the revised liability for limits for claims, we have consulted the Shipping Consultative Committee, the Port Operation Committee, and the Local Vessels Consultative Committee of the Marine Department. Members supported these proposals, and we would like to invite members to express their views on the proposals, and we plan to introduce the legislative amendments by the middle of 2018. We have Mr. Ronald Chan, Mr. Jeremy Tam, and Dr. Loy Kwok. Mr. Ronald Chan, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, according to the administration, the International Maritime Organization, IMO, already announced that because of inflation, the liability limits will be increased by 51% in 2012, but the new limits only came into force in 2018, and if the bill is not tabled until 2018, that means that it will be another 3 years since the limits came into force, and another 3 years since its announcement. Now, since it's so many years after it is announced, why don't we further revise the limits to reflect inflation? Second point, as mentioned by Mr. James Toh just now, the Lamma Island vessel collision incident resulted in 39 deaths, and according to the media, there have been 131 claims, and with about 100 cases settled and 30 cases outstanding. So I'd like to ask about the international conventions, about the claims filed. Would the statutory time limit be based on the date of occurrence of the event or the date on which the claim is filed? And because if the limit is raised, the claimants can file a claim according to the increased limit. Yes, who would take the question? Let me answer the member's question. First, on the legislative timetable, in 2012, the IMO approved the increase of liability limits, and it came into force in 2015. And in our paper, we mentioned that we hope to table the bills by the middle of 2018. And that's the case for the International Convention. As for on control of pollution, as for the increase of liability limit, we plan to table the bill by the end of this year, and the limits will be revised according to the new limits approved by IMO. So it will be increased by 51%. As for the vessel collision incident near Lamma Island, the statutory time limit is based on the date of occurrence of the incident, but to our understanding, regarding the claims filed by relatives or injured persons in the incident, one of the defendants, that is Hong Kong Electric, in the hearing already admitted their liability. And they've also told the court that they have reached a settlement with the claimants. And we understand that these claims which have been settled are not affected by the increased limits. What about ongoing claims? Would they still be using the date of occurrence as the beginning of the period or date of filing the claim? Date of occurrence. All right, no more questions, Chairman. Next, Mr. Jeremy Tam, 4 minutes. I'd like to ask about the time frame, about the first part, that is the control of pollution. In 2004, there were substantial revisions, but the guidelines weren't introduced until 2007, and we're now in 2017, 13 years. Why is it that this bill isn't tabled until 13 years later? It is true that for Annex 2 of MARPOL, there were substantial revisions approved by IMO adopting the latest standards. And immediately after that, through administrative measures, the Marine Department issued the information bulletin and notices to inform the captains and coxswains of merchant vessels of the latest arrangement. And indeed, the legislative exercise has come a bit late, and that is why in the recent 2 or 3 years we have tried to submit our legislative proposals to the Council so that we can align our standards with the IMO's revised standards. So you admit that you are late, but there must be a reason. Is it because when you published the information bulletin for merchant shipping vessels, you found that not many vessels are in compliance, and it is hard to explain why you have waited for 13 years. And are there any similar legislations that have not been amended for so many years? Well, after the IMO approved the revisions, the Marine Department implemented the new requirements through administrative means in Hong Kong. And since the department adopted the administrative measures, by and large the sector has been in compliance, but we understand that this needs to be backed by legislation, and that is why we propose to submit legislative amendments to incorporate the IMO's approved latest standards. Now, in 2012, we submitted the proposal to the Legislative Council, and we explained the ordinances, and that's 44 of them, which have yet to be updated to align with the international standards. Some of these, for the remaining pieces of legislation, they are quite technical, and we are working with the Department of Justice to expedite the progress. Every year, the IMO holds many meetings. And in terms of the new requirements or new information on control of pollution and also marine safety, they make the revisions. And on a regular basis, we work with the Department of Justice on these new requirements and revisions to incorporate them into our local legislation. Well, I just raised a point about how many pieces of legislation which are out of date. I thought it would be a dozen or 2 dozen, but over 40 of them. Well, what is wrong with Marine Department? You need to fulfill international requirements, and this one is already outrageous enough. That the revisions were made in 2004, and the proposals come in 2017. if there weren't a review, then we wouldn't know that in fact there are 44 pieces of legislation out of date. So I think the Marine Department totally lacks vision. Any response from the department? Well, we'll expedite the progress. We have 14 pieces of legislation outstanding, and we hope to Well, do you have a timetable by the end of 2018? All right, to revise the remaining 14 ordinances. Dr. Loy Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I'm referring to the annex or the schedule about raising the liability limits. Well, I thought it quite strange because it seems to have some odd figures, but that's in accordance with the latest requirement of the or the IMO to raise the LLMC, and we are following the IMO's latest directions. But in terms of overall marine safety, I'd like to have more information. What is meant by these limits? I don't quite understand. For example, apart from fatal maritime accidents, we have, say, leakage of fuel or other substances into the sea, and the money involved might be very huge. So I want to know what's the relevance of the liability limits on protection against these incidents. Referring to insurance, what would be the amount insured? Say, if an unfortunate incident happens, apart from possible fatalities, there may be marine pollution, and it's a hefty price to pay. So I'd like you to elaborate on this point. About the protection arrangement. Let me briefly explain the mechanism of liability claims. The IMO at first set down these rules because for maritime business, risks are involved. Let's say if I have a vessel, I may transport cargo, then the cargo may be expensive, and it may entail a very hefty amount of money together with lives of seafarers, and that is why the IMO imposed some liability limits and to protect cargo as well as seamen, and they have reached agreements with the industry. Let's say if the ship sinks, leading to fatalities and loss of shipment, then the civil claims may be filed, but then a limit would be set because the ship owner would take out an insurance policy with a limit, and if the claim amount far exceeds the sum insured and the proposed limit, then when the case is taken to the court, the ship owner can then invoke the IMO's liability limit. And what Dr. Low said just now is correct, because about the liability limit, it provides a limit for the court's reference, but usually, in most cases, the claims would not reach this limit. And according to the International Federation of Insurers, usually, say for spillage of oil incidents, the claim amount would be very huge and would exceed the limit, because oil spillage may seriously undermine the fishermen's business, and from figures up to 2009, the 2% of the international damage claims exceeded this limit, whereas the majority of cases could be covered by the sum insured under the insurance policy without invoking this liability limit. I don't quite understand let's say if the actual loss far exceeds the liability limit, does it mean that there is no way a claim can be filed, or that the insurance policy can cover the actual loss? In a case of, say, oil spillage and loss of marine life, that depends on the case. In the case of an oil spillage incident, when a sovereign state and the fisherman files a claim, because usually there would be a insurance policy taken out, so they will see how much is covered by the insurance policy, and then the ship owner can cover for the outstanding claim. And if it goes beyond the owner's means, and if it far exceeds the sum insured, then the case is taken to the court. The ship owner can then rely on this liability limit. I'm sorry, but does it mean that in principle the insurance company can also adopt this liability limit as their limit of sum insured? Let me supplement. I thank Dr. Low for his question. About the LLMC, the mechanism seeks to provide an insurance pool for ship owners, and it is different from the insurance policies for maritime incidents, because this pool of money seeks to provide protection for third-party claims and also protection for ship owners. Let me give you one example. Let's say if a client wishes to transport a shipment from port A to port B, the cargo owner can take out insurance policy with an insurer to insure the shipment, such that compensation may be given to the cargo owner. Whereas for this mechanism, we have the liability limits for ship owners. Let's say for the ship owner transporting the cargo, when he faces a claim, the amount that the claimant can claim is subject to the liability limit, but there are two conditions. First, the claim should be directly filed against the ship owner, and because a maritime insurance policy has been taken out, he can also claim for loss of cargo at sea, and then the goods owner can also file a claim directly with the ship owner.
As for major accidents such as spillage of oil affecting coastal environment, and also the death of fishing stock, there is a special provision for the oil spillage pollution. That would be handled by another insurance fund, and I hope this would address Mr. Low's questions. I hope that this can also facilitate members' understanding. Mr. Houghton Chow, two questions. According to your document, the limitation limit of liabilities has increased by 51%, and in paragraph 8 you talk about the insurance premium will be determined by the quality, track record, and likely risk of the ships concerned, and you're saying that this revise in limit should not have significant impact on insurance and operating costs borne by ships. Do we have experience in other jurisdictions concerning changes in insurance premium? With higher liability limit, it's not very easy to convince people that the premium will not be affected. Can you tell us the experience of other countries in respect of the impact on premium? And secondly, I mentioned this issue some years ago. If we're talking about an accident on the road, we have a so-called no-fault scheme because there is a compensation fund established to offer compensation to victims, irrespective of the question of fault. But for marine accident, I don't think there is such an arrangement. In the past, it was said that the shipping insurance is not big enough as a pool. Would you consider doing making a similar arrangement for victims of marine accidents and offer compensation to victims? Thank you, Mr. Chow, for your question. First of all, the question of the impact on insurance premium, as we have stated in paragraph 8, whether there is going to be an increase in premium. We're saying that this is not really there's not a linear relationship. It certainly it depends on the quality of the ships and the track record. It's like what we are seeing in household insurance. When you renew your policy the following year, the insurer will look at the history of claims and the conditions of your home in deciding the new premium. And the ship owners, the insurer will consider also how many ships are insured by the same insurer. Actually, the IMO did a consultation exercise, and we did consult the shipping consultative committee, and the shipping industry gave us a response, saying that they had contacted the insurers in maritime insurance, and they were told that notwithstanding the increase in the liability limits, the premium will not be significantly increased. So that's what they responded to our questions in the consultation exercise. On the second question is the comparison with road accidents. Yes, for road accidents, there is a compensation fund. In 2013, 14, and 15, Mr. Chow asked if we would like to do the same for maritime accidents by providing a similar arrangement. We did that, and we received many data from the insurance associations. The pool for the land transport and road accident insurance is big, but for shipping insurance, the additional burden will not be bearable to the industry. So the conclusion is that should there be an accident, we can utilize the fund for road accidents to take care of the cases.
知名議員，
唔該主席，就呢一類嘅
Mr. Yik Chi-ming, these amendments will affect two types of ship. First, ocean-going ships, which are always subject to international conventions, so they won't have any comment or disagreement. And also in paragraph 9, you state that you have consulted the relevant shipping-related committees. I have not received anything from the industry concerning the proposed changes to the legislation. So I just want to report to the chairman that for those constituents of mine, they have no comments. Mr. Leung Kok-hong. We all talk about the Belt and Road Initiative. Do you know what's the full title, Mr. Yik? I don't understand. I didn't know this. The Silk Road Economic Belt and the 21st century the maritime Silk Road. Maritime means that it's not on the road. Your legislative amendments come so slowly. When we talk about the use of polluting diesel or the ban of using use of polluting diesel in our harbor area, and Mr. Jeremy Tam have a lot to say about this. Concerning the legislative amendments, have you been talking to the DOJ, or would you be taking them up from time to time, or is there a regular mechanism? Did they send someone to represent your department to liaise with the international organization? We know that the IMO hold regular meetings, and they would from time to time propose amendments or implement amendments. When we know that there are changes to the international convention concerned, then the Marine Department would and us would be talking to the DOJ, because usually the wording in the convention is very wide, and we need to decide how to apply them locally. In the DOJ, we have the assistance from the Law Adjustments Unit and the International Law Division. They have dedicated people helping us. All right, you have a small unit, and they are now doing. They are also offering a mediation service, but this is just routine. This is a routine matter. And they have this organization has been implementing new changes, and you have a unit offering service to you through regular meetings. How frequent are the meetings? Once a week, once a month, or what? We have set up a dedicated task force, a dedicated unit to deal with different issues. We have meetings from time to time, but in a month we have at least a few meetings. Apart from the proposed amendments that we have tabled, there are other annexes in the MARPO that we need to amend. So why are you sticking behind? Even in a bar, you can press the button, and you know from your computer the holding stocks. Can you tell Mr. Yang Wai-hong to help you? You can press the buttons, and you will get all the beeping sounds, and then you know you are lagging behind. And we know who are not doing the job fast enough, whether it's the Marine Department or DOJ. Well, this is not a problem for the DPP. You are having a number of meetings in a month. How can you expedite things? And by the end of next year, you are going to wrap up all these outstanding amendments. Can you tell us how you are able to catch up, since you have been lagging behind for so long? In the past 1 or 2 years, we have been catching up very quickly. But last year, we amended some 20 pieces of subsidiary legislation, and at the end of this year, at the last panel on economic development. We consulted members on the amendments to subsidiary legislation. We hope by the end of this year we will be able to table them for members' scrutiny. The IMO, when passing the amendments, will need to allow the signatories, the state parties, to have some time to incorporate the amendments into local legislation, and we'll have to see how the amendments can be applied in Hong Kong. So apart from the law draftsman, we also need the colleagues from the International Law Division to talk about how they can be adapted and applied, so that takes time. So for shipping, the certification, and construction, they are highly technical. Therefore, that's why we have a dedicated unit for this. Normally, we will correspond in writing, but we will also meet to save time. And the DFJ has been very helpful. We want to have a direct reference approach, and that is by directly referring to the international instrument. For example, for this MARPO, for the categories X, Y, Z, they each have an annex dedicated to each category, setting out the chemicals under category X, Y, or Z. And every time when the list is amended, we don't want to have to revisit our laws every time, so that we will provide direct reference to the annexes of the international convention concerned, so that we will be able to move in tandem with the amendments of the IMO.
In short, I think we should second Mr. Holden Chow to their department to help check their papers. All right, so if there are no follow-up questions from members, yes, Mr. Jeremy Tam, follow-up? 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Well, just now I was shocked to hear that there are 44 outstanding outdated legislation. I want to know which one is the one the most out of date, 1997? You mean for the dozen remaining pieces of legislation, the answer is no, but I can give you some of supplementary information later. Right, please catch up, because for the one in for the announcement made in 2004, we're in 2017. It's so outdated. Mr. Frankie Yik, 2 minutes. The last term of LegCo already discussed the problem of delay. That's why new resources have been approved for the DOJ to increase manpower to deal with the maritime legislation. We understand that they have improved the situation. They're catching up, and you will submit the proposal in the middle of 2018. So please do so as quickly as possible. All right, so if there are no other questions from members, then that concludes the item. Would members in principle support this legislative proposal? No objection. All right, thank you. Item 5, further development of Hong Kong's port and maritime services. Let's invite the administration in, and let's take a 2-minute break. Thank you.